I live in New York, near the city, and recently I fell into some hard money times. At the time, I was feeding an addiction, so I was really looking to make money any way I could. I met a girl whose name I will keep confidential as I don't want anyone to know she's gone through this. We both wanted to make a quick buck, so we decided that she could be an escort, offering her time for money to some old rich man who probably can't get laid on his own, while I would drive her to various hotels and houses, keeping a close eye on them in case anyone wanted to pull something, like not pay or do anything she was uncomfortable with. I'm a 28-year-old, 6'3", 200-pound guy. Nobody really messes with her when they know I'm around. One day we decided to post an ad on Craigslist, advertising for just a dinner escort service. No hanky-panky involved, just a meeting for the lonely who wants company. We weren't getting any responses nearby, so we broadened our horizons by searching in New York City. We got a few emails from a couple of people who weren't really serious. Then she got one email from a guy named Joey Verdi. It said he was interested in meeting, but he lived all the way out in New Jersey. New Jersey was about 4 hours away, so we needed to know everything would be good to go once we got there. He gave her a call. I sat quietly while she had him on a speakerphone. He sounded like a regular guy, mid to late 40s maybe. He told her he was in the midst of a very nasty divorce and that he's very rich. He was trying to get her to come to his house by a car service. I kind of cared about this girl a lot, and the car service idea to Jersey was not an option. He then told her because of the divorce, he didn't want a weird car parked outside the house. He also said he didn't want any drivers because the neighbors would call his ex-wife's lawyers. He was pretty convincing, but I wasn't letting this beautiful girl drive alone 4 hours to a guy who lives in another state. He told her he'd pay her $2,000 if she'd stay the night. When you're so money crazy, you don't look at the red flags like, why is this guy offering to pay 10 times over what we ask? We decided that the money was good for the request. The girl and I both started plotting. I was going to drive her most of the way there. Then, when we reach about 15 minutes away, I'll get in the trunk, and she'll drive to the house. I'll be there, and he wouldn't know, and they can do their thing and we'll all get paid. That was the plan. She called him and told him she'd drive herself. He kept asking if she was alone, and she kept lying. He was very excited, and we began our journey. About 2 hours in, he calls us and keeps asking if she's alone, then asks what she's wearing. She tells him. He then begins demanding that she changes into a skirt and fishnet stockings. I thought if this guy is so paranoid about the neighbors calling the lawyers, why would he want a girl dressed as a blatant prostitute walking up to his door? She declined his demands firmly, and he kind of seemed to be taken aback by her attitude. But she's the kind of girl who doesn't take shit from anyone, even if it is from the hand that feeds her. We were about an hour away now, when he then says he would have to wire the money to her, and that he doesn't actually have the cash. He claims the ATM is only a few blocks away. He's starting to become annoying, persisting he can wire the money to her. I tell her it's up to her. She told me that if he doesn't pony up the dough, then she'd resort to having me muscle it out of him. We're already in New Jersey, and the GPS says we're 30 minutes away from the destination. We're about to pull over at a gas station so I can hop in the trunk, and she can proceed with the meeting. We weren't sure at all where the house was, so we figured a half hour away would be okay to put the plan in motion. We pass an array of industrial-looking warehouses, a truck stop, and a gas station when she gets a phone call. She didn't put it on speaker, but the look on her face, the color of her face, her eyes, looked at me as if to tell me we are in big trouble. I saw you with another guy, he says in a fed-up, frustrated, almost enraged tone. We aren't even near where you said you'd be, and I'm alone, she lied. Don't lie to me. I saw you with another guy. The deal is off. I'm not doing this, and he hung up. She becomes enraged. She wanted the money after driving 4 hours, paying tolls, and talking to this moron for the duration of the trip. She begins plotting that she's going to go to the location where he told us to meet him. We drove until the GPS told us we were there, but there was nothing there except abandoned-looking warehouses like the ones we passed 30 minutes away. We immediately became suspicious. Where is this house? Where is civilization? But more importantly, where was he to see us coming to him? I began typing his number into my phone. and the rest of the number already came up on the Google search with the name Joey the Player on a website called thebadboyreport.kr. There were at least 50 reports dating back to the early 2000s of escorts and even lonely women who were just looking for a nice date getting conned by this guy. But what I thought were just reports of just some loser who gets off on making girls drive to them only to cancel were much, much scarier than that. As I'm reading, I book it out of the abandoned parking lot. The name Joey the Player, beware, came up first on the number reverse search. Stories just like mine of girls meeting only for him to cancel, but then there were the ones that weren't so lucky. Girls referring to him as a perverse psycho who would actually lure them in, make them do degrading, horrible things like pop his back pimples or things that involved fecal matter. Then if they didn't comply, he would actually physically harm them or claim he knows someone in the FBI, and they'd go to jail for prostitution. One report even said the girl's body was ruined after the meeting. I can only imagine from all the horror movies I watch. I sat there reading with her these reports, and most stated the girls would take the car service like he requested earlier, and he wouldn't pay it, forcing the girl to pay the car service. And when she wants to leave, some reports say they had to walk miles before coming to anyone with a phone. They also state he uses different houses, and people think he may have ties with real estate. The images of what could have happened to the girl I was with went wild in my head. He also uses hundreds of phone numbers, so he stays below the radar. Now this happened in the summer of 2015, but reports like this have dated back to 2008. We even called all the numbers the websites listed that he used to harass him, telling him we know who he is and what he's doing. At one point, we called a number and a female answered, then she proceeded to tell us how he's a safe guy who's rich and wants company, almost to completely ignore what we were saying. That night, I took her back to my place and we decided after that we would live an honest, clean life. I even proposed to her a few months later. I often think about Joey the Player and wonder, is he keeping victims in these places to answer the phone like robots so he can collect more victims? Or what was he planning to do with this girl once he had her? I hear stories of girls being abducted at truck stops to be sold in the sex trade. I'm really glad I was there and that nothing happened. I wanted to share this story in hopes to spread awareness of this creep who's still out there preying on women who need financial help, or even lonely women. So the next time you get an email responding to your personal ad from a guy named Joey, or Jose, or Joe, who just got out of a nasty divorce, it might be best to tell him to piss off unless you're a cop. This happened to my aunt and uncle in the early 80s or so. They were living in Austin, Texas, and had attended a party in a neighboring area. They were driving back very late, and at one point were driving along a very long, completely deserted stretch of road, bordered by woods and brush on one side. No houses, no streetlights, no other cars on the road. Nothing. My uncle, who was driving, notices a car coming up behind them, which then speeds up and gets very close. My aunt and uncle start talking about how weird this guy is. There's no reason to tailgate on an empty road in the middle of the night. Then the guy speeds up even more and pulls up alongside them in the other lane. He starts yelling at them to pull over and is flashing what looks like a police badge. My uncle starts to slow down to pull over, and my aunt absolutely freaks out and tells him not to. She is really creeped out that this guy, who is driving a car that has no police markings and no flashing lights, pulled up to them out of nowhere and is now trying to get them to pull over just by flashing a badge. While they argue about whether to pull over or not, the man in the car is getting more and more angry, yelling at them to pull over, honking his horn and flashing the badge, saying he's the police. My aunt starts crying and my uncle says fine, if the guy's really a cop and they need to stop for him, they will stop when they reach the next populated area or business, which will be a while, but they reason that if he really is a cop, he would have to understand their point of view. My aunt and uncle keep wavering between worried this guy is out of his mind and worried it's a real cop, and they're going to be in big trouble for not pulling over when told. Finally, they see a gas station up ahead and plan to stop there. As soon as they pull into the station, the cop speeds off, never to be seen by them again. They didn't think to try to get his license plate number at the time and were just thoroughly creeped out. They drove the rest of the way home without incident. That's not the end of the story, though. A few months later, on the exact same stretch of road, a man is rescued who tells a horrifying story, which is then big news in Austin. A fake cop had gotten this man, who was driving at night with his girlfriend on that very same road, to pull over. Once pulled over, the fake cop forced the man and his girlfriend out of the car and into the woods on the side of the road. He tied the man and his girlfriend to separate trees facing each other, and then did horrible things to both, ultimately killing the woman, while the other was forced to watch just a few feet away. I'm not sure how the man ended up eventually getting rescued, but it was long after the fake cop was gone. Either someone must have found the man tied there, or he finally got loose and found help. They never caught the fake cop. That could have been my aunt and uncle, if they had pulled over their car that night like my uncle wanted and started to do. My aunt always ends the story with, "And that's why my husband always has to listen to me."